What I found was what I wanted to show you today was a very unique installer. Nothing like what we've been using for most of our Linux installs from the Debian Ubuntu Mate family or Mint family. This is one coming from a distribution called Elive, and I thought this was pretty neat, so I wanted to share with you. We're not going to actually do the install because that would take a while, but I wanted you to run through the different dialog boxes that you get to see how unique this is and how customized you can make your installed distro. First off, it turns out you help set up the live version, because most of the time you always go to a live version and then use it to install. And of course, one of the first things that comes up, and that's going to be your language. These screenshots have been enlarged so that you can see them, because they're very kind of small on a virtual machine installation. So I kind of made them big. They're also not the clearest, crispest, but you get the point. Okay, and then of course it's going to ask you the keyboard. And then if you have a sub keyboard, it'll ask you for that, because they're always, even though it's in English, but there could be different kinds of keyboards. And then it's going to ask you what features do you want. And for example, it's talking about a compositor, so you can enable transparency, make the dock look better. The conky for where your shortcuts are. You can activate desktop sound effects. You can do the Cairo dock, which is one of those. The conky is the one that shows you all your information. The Cairo dock is your shortcut. And if you're interested in IRC chats, you can even set that up on your live demo. And then it asks you, I didn't go backwards. And then it asks you, do you want to play some music while you are touring this distro and installing it and everything? And you can play it in a window. You can also ask them to show me a video, introductory video on your things. Also show you all the hotkeys that go with it. So these are all the ones that would be what you would use to start your live distro. And then from that, you would click on the button that says install. And this is what we go to when we got to go to install. First thing they want to know is, do you want to help us out by automatically reporting bug problems? That way we can, help fix the problems. And some people don't like stuff being sent from their computers automatically, so you have the choice. You have an option down here at the bottom that says you can get guided help, so that every step of the way you get detailed instructions on what's going on. I chose not to do that with all that extra. And I also wanted to configure the options as we went along. So one of the first things that we get is, now, how are you going to install this? This is an interesting approach, different than what we've seen normally. Normally it's use the whole disk or something else, and we can do the partition. But they realize that some people are not only going to just do it by automatic, which is the second choice, but if you're on a Windows computer, you need to be able to know how to resize the Windows partition to get room for your Linux one. Or you can use the gparted program, which is what most people use with their installers, or the new GNOME disks. We talked about that a little bit before. So you can pick which way. If it's already partitioned, you're fine, or you can let the computer automatically do it with their own method. Then it'll pop up and say, well, what file system do you want to use? And that usually is set up when we do your custom partitions. One weird thing that somebody has pointed out, that the second choice, the Riser FS, is, he says, fast and reliable, but a lot of people say that's kind of outdated, that we've moved on to other file systems besides the default mostly used ext4, but you have that choice. Then the question comes up, do you want to enable encryption? And the warning about, if you forget the password, you will never get to your data. And you get a choice, do you want to do a swap partition or just leave it as a swap file? And so if you do, it will create that for you, much the same way we would have done it sort of in the how you do it anyway, or how you do it if you do it some other way. So I thought that was interesting that they do that. All right, so now it says it's doing some work on here, so you know it's working. But here's an interesting thing. This is a distribution that is a very small team, like 1 or 2 people at the most. And it pops up an option to saying, do you want to support my work? It says our work, but I've been reading that it's not much more than a few people. And to keep this project. And you can choose yes or no that you want to provide it. And if you do that, it continues doing some magic to get the install. And then it pops up with, well, you know, you realize that if we don't get help with financial support, then we probably can't keep this project going very long. And you say, okay, thanks for telling me. Then a little bit later, it pops up again. How about donating? Now, you don't have to donate. You can say no again, but at least this person has given the chance, told you that, you know, if you like this, if I don't get a lot of donations, I may run out of money and stop doing this. Okay, back to a normal name, host name for your computer so you can find it on your network. Now, I did not go backwards. Here's something new. It says, okay, what features do you want to have installed by default that might not be? And as you look through down here, you can see, well, yeah, there's some things I want. If you have a Bluetooth laptop or computer, you'd probably want the Bluetooth support, definitely printer support. If you don't have a scanner, then you wouldn't need to worry about that. You can do the Samba sharing if you're happy to go with Windows. The adding disk utilities, they recommend you use the systemd, and get direct access to this machine on your local network. So those are some very interesting things that I've never seen as an option in the distros that I've done installing. Then we go on and say, how about applications? What do you want? This way you can have a very trim, slim distribution or add it up. Now, it's going to come probably with Synaptic or the command line to install, but it also says we can add a software center to make it easier, but it's going to consume more resources, but it's also going to include flat packs. So you got to take your decide. Do you like the software center? Do you do 3D stuff? Do you do media center? We talked with Dave, who was talking to us about his workings with media center. So you can add that to here. Do you need an office application? Do you need vector drawing with Inkscape? Are you a photo person with GIMP? Do you want an email program? And do you want games? And they let you know that some of this is going to take some extra stuff, but then you can also remove software later if you decide you wanted, and then you decide later, nope, you can always unload. So we've gotten some systems, and now we've got programs. Then it asks, do you want to add extra themes? And a lot of times people like backgrounds and themes and stuff. So you can add those extras. The E16, this is the desktop environment. This is a new one we haven't looked at before. And it's called Enlightenment version 16. So it's just called E16. Or this is a special version of the elive program that doesn't use the default designs, but you can add them back, so you can take this back to a regular kind of program. What browsers do you want? Because it's not going to come with any browser unless you ask. So you get the choices. Notice that it doesn't give all of them, but you can get more later on. But the most popular between, Google Chromium. I don't like them saying Google Chromium because it's Chromium, but Firefox, Opera, Pale Moon. So you can add how many browsers you want. I always recommend that you have at least 2. What other special features do you not want? So you can go down through this list and remove things. For example, I would definitely remove unnecessary foreign languages. I would uninstall international foreign language fonts that I would never use, taking up space. Uninstall the man pages. Now that depends. If you're somebody who wants to read those because you're learning to do the command line, you don't want to really get rid of those. But if you're not going to be a command type person, oh, okay. You can get rid of demo files, dependencies that you don't need anymore. They recommend that you do not uninstall drivers because you never know what you might need. And you can uninstall the debugging packages. So you can do a lot of stuff to trim it down. Now, when you do this, that's going to make the install go longer than normal because you have to get that off. Now, they call these unfree softwares. And I think that that's misnamed because I don't pay for Skype. I don't pay for Zoom. I don't pay Zoom, Steam, or Dropbox because they all have free versions. So I think this is probably supposed to be non-free open sourceness. But if you're going to be a Skype user, or like for most of us on our APCUG, you can have the Zoom added, or if you're a gamer, put the Steam on there. You need cloud storage. So it gives you a lot of choices in what to add. So people who don't want extra stuff, you don't have to have it. Then comes the magic, because what you get to do is a little box will pop open and you will see all of the activities for installing and removing all these files takes place in front of you. And so all the stuff that Orv's been teaching us, you might be able to read some of that and get an idea. But you can see right at the top, I just took a quick shot halfway through this, that you can see that there are 39 newly installed programs, and they're out getting them. So you can actually watch the what's going on behind and see what it does. But again, you have been given the opportunity to custom choose the exact installation. It's not where the distro says, well, I've installed it. Now, if you don't like some of the stuff, get rid of it. If we didn't put what you want in there, go get it. We got to do that kind of right off the bat. Then as we get to the end, here's where we set up our users. And if you want to, using the email, you can give an email address so that that's already in the system. You can do the auto login if you want. This is interesting. You can make a user not have the rights to install packages. Now, you probably want that if you're the only user, or you're going to be in trouble. And again, also you can grant sudo privileges, as we talked about before. This one is not recommended to grant admin and never request the password. We never really recommend that you set up where you don't have to use a password. That's your security level. And then finally, it comes to the point where you've installed it. And then you can either continue to just use the live one or reboot. So we're going to boot up and take a look at this setup here. Now, as I said, this is a very unique one. This brand is very modern, maybe a little bit too modern. And I don't know that I would use this as my everyday because of the limited support that it gets from the developer. He's got some great ideas, and trying to hide that pop-up, but it won't. So wanted you to see it start up. 64-bit, I think it doesn't have a 32-bit. Very modern, and I like the stuff coming across so you know it's working. And there's the login box. There's that thing I was talking about earlier for Mint 21.2 modified, some of up here. And also, let me see if I can move this. That's worse. Glitch in the Linux world. Up in here in the top, when you do a dual desktop, you will have either in the login box a settings button, or up at the top where you can be able to pick, do I want to log in using Mate, or do I want to use XFCE, or if you've got multiple, this is where you would do it. We've had some people ask that before, and that's what you would do. But we just got the one choice here. And now it's my way over here. Get full screen. All right, so this is the thing, and I apologize for this bar that won't disappear. I do not have an option to hide that. I can hide the people. So I gotta complain to Zoom about that. Okay, as you can see, the background stuff, it's very, very modern. Here's the information that you can run for, we call Conky, to get all the information about the computer that you're running. And there's the Cairo dock across the bottom, which is a typical Mac OS type thing on there. One of the interesting things that I discovered about this one is that we've talked about workstations in past, or virtual desktops. This guy has designed his that you can have two separate desktops and virtual windows inside of those. And he has them in pop-out locations. So these are the two different actual desktops, and each desktop has 6 virtual windows in it. So you could get quite a lot of things going between all of these different choices. And he chose that rather than to put it on a panel or stuff, that it's just a pop-out window. The E16, or the Enlightenment desktop, excuse me, comes with a traditional application menu, and of course these are all the fancy colored neon lights and stuff, and we can change that to go back to the regular. But you get the regular menu, which has all your categories and then subfolders and the programs that come with it. Interesting on this, it comes with the Audacious already on the chat box. You have a shortcut folder that sends you to all of your locations that you want. Your clipboard history, Stack, which is a photo program, your Pulse Audio. This is the elive. I got to start watching two screens. The elive center, and then there's your Wi-Fi and your trash. And the elive center pops open a huge another menu of setting your hotkeys, your program launchers, and all of these sub things. I haven't even had a chance to get all into this. It's huge. Now, in addition to the menus that come over here at the side, if I left click, I get another choice of a menu. So I don't even need to have that at the bottom. So Enlightenment gives you this menu where you have everything that pops up with a left click mouse all the way down. And when you get down to preferences, you can see there's a lot of choices. I think that the Enlightenment may come as a branch for history, or got some ideas from XFCE for all the different kind of customization that it can do. If we get to the Enlightenment, this is a separate settings for Enlightenment that deals with the desktops or the backgrounds, the different desktops. This is a glitch too, and I think in the virtual. Come on, stop. Use my arrow keys. And get you into where your themes are for this. If I right click, if I go into settings, if I thought XFCE had customization, this Enlightenment one is amazing because these are all the different tabs on the side with all of the things that you can do and customize this operating system. This one's called the focus. There's moving and resizing, the different kind of desks that you want, the number of virtual desks that you can go, your sound controls, your effects control. What do you want to do about themes? Use the theme configuration tool on your sessions. But this is huge. Close that one out. But this is an amazing distro to play with. I definitely will keep this in my virtual box and experiment with it and experiment with the Enlightenment desktop environment. You can always go back. See if I can get back and get out of the and get out of this one, which is called the retro wave, and I can go to that. Now you won't let me get my things out of there. But as you can see, this is very unique and kind of crazy. But I wanted to show it to you because I wanted you to see how the installation program gave you so many choices to be able to build it the way you want to do it. Let's try and change the theme there. Oh, no, I want the background, desktop backgrounds. Are you gonna let me change backgrounds? No. But you can, you can get it away from the monitor. Oh, there you can see how the theme changed over here at the side. Ah, yeah, there's the corner that you have to pick out. And so I can switch desktops, and then within that different desktop, I can have 6 different virtual boxes in that. So I don't know if I would ever go that crazy on that. Right, that gives you an idea of a different desktop environment that we haven't looked at, and it's a Debian type based distro, so that's not much different than what we've seen before. But the installation program and the actual desktop environments, very unique. So turn things back over to Judy for anything.
It's interesting. I was just checking APCUG's Facebook account, and a few of the things that we talked about, not that you guys talked about this morning, are in the Facebook account. That from, I happen to like the sources for Linux and things like that. And I thought that was way cool. Talk about, having your Facebook account up to date in a timely manner with what's going on in the Linux world.
All right. Yay. Thank you.
Do we have any questions from anybody? We do have our buddy in Camarillo, but does anybody else have any questions about things that were talked about today? Except Orv's not here. Or any other burning Linux questions you might have?
Stump the panel here.
Okay. Andy Kerrigan, you're on.
John, nice job. A whole lot. I was muted, so you couldn't hear my oh wows. Question for you or Cal or somebody that really speaks Linux.
Oh, wait a second, Andy. You've been with me long enough to know that I'm just the host. But go ahead.
Well, you covered Mate, XFCE. This is Enlightenment, and I know if I go into the package manager, you can load the different desktop environments on one distro.
Yes.
So I could have Enlightenment. What are the pros and cons, or any problem loading up, XFCE and GNOME and Cinnamon and Enlightenment, whatever, on the same machine, outside of the real estate that it's going to be taking up on your hard drive?
I think some of the, and I'll let others chime in, is that you're bringing in, let's say, a foreign language of words, and your computer kind of gets lost in stuff because it was originally, let's say it was a Cinnamon desktop, and it had all of the things that worked with Cinnamon desktop. And when you pull in something like KDE, then you bring in a lot of KDE stuff. And some of the KDE stuff hasn't really been tested and designed to work with the Cinnamon stuff. And so, I think it's a nice idea to do, but I think you end up having a computer that doesn't know whether it's a Cinnamon or it's a KDE or what, because it's all in there together. It's just at the beginning when you log in, you say, I want to be using this desktop environment, and hope for the best on that. Anybody else on those comments?
Yes, it's conflicts are the biggest problem of having too many things. Generally, it generally works out between KDE and most GNOME type things, but some of the others get more complicated. And if you really need to, then you can use containers, but it just gets awful complicated for no good reason sometimes.
I've had a problem. Go ahead, Ed.
The reason that I ask is there are a couple of applications that are specifically for a given desktop, whether it's file managers or whatever. And if you go to install it, what packages are going to be installed? It gives you a whole laundry list of all the different elements that are going to be installed.
Right.
So, you know, well, why not just install the whole desktop environment and be done with it? But okay, you bring up a good point with the conflicts.
Yeah. I've been very selective. There are some KDE programs that I like, but I like the KDE ones that don't bring in a lot of extra stuff. And this is where, you know, Cal's been very helpful in our education, that using the containers and the flat hubs and the flat packs and the snaps bring in those programs that do not really mix in with your regular distro, because everything they need is in that one container.
Great suggestion.
Yeah, and what I've had the problem with is I've done it with just like doing maybe Mint and KDE or Mate, and I'll go in and I'll try out KDE. The next time when I log in, I don't pay attention. It does the last known desktop, and I'm in the KDE and I want to be in the Mate. So I have to log out, get back in, switch it, go back in. I think a lot better is just to run virtual machines if you really want to try it. But yes, I agree with you about some software. There's a couple of KDE programs that I really like, but one of them pulls in lots of extra stuff, and one of them pulls in like hardly anything.
Great. Thank you.
Kevin,
Yes, thank you. I did enjoy seeing those old IBM tape drives, having used those for about 3 to 5 years, long time ago. That was a treat. But my question is, are there advantages and disadvantages to using swap files versus swap partitions on one hard drive? And then is it possible or reasonable to have two hard drives, whether they be solid state or not, on a system, and maybe even putting your swap files or having a swap partition there? Because I understand the concept of what they are and everything. It's just, I haven't thought through that. And if somebody else has, I'd be interested in knowing what they think.
In fact, the more modern approach is to use swap files, because most people today have enough memory. Whereas swap partitions, when you had 2 gigs of memory, were required. Now, most people say that swap files are good, like when the machine kind of gets overloaded, it can drop things off in a quick place. So it improves the efficiency rather than really absolute using, you know, you've not quite run out of memory, but some of the programs kind of use that as a temporary storage. So I've got kind of, I don't exactly know the technical thing, but I know that just, you know, the trend has been to go to swap files because you really don't need them and you're not setting up all this overhead and so forth.
Hey, Cal.
Yeah,
Cal,
Andy.
I use a swap partition, and the main reason, probably the only reason I use a partition versus the files, is because I have my toy box, and I have at any given time 4 different Linux distros installed. So my grub menu looks like hell, but I can boot any one of the 4, but each of them uses the same swap partition.
Yeah, okay. That's
only
it.
set up
That's
one-
good. That's
only
a,
set
that's
up
a
one
good
swap
special
partition.
use.
Right. That's one reason for it.
I think the other reason some people like the swap file is that it's not a permanently assigned, that it's an area that can be used, and when not used, it's not used. Whereas the swap partition, you've got to partition it off and it's there, and you've used up hard drive. But nowadays too, you know, with hard drives as big as they are, I don't know of anybody that's running out of hard drive space.
I think the real reason probably is because all of these auto installs, whereas in the old, you know, if you're used to pre-partitioning and putting 2 or 3, you know, different distros and different partitions and booting into different ones, in that situation, then you're used to dealing with partitions and swap files. But if you just say, take over the whole disk or take over, you know, then a swap file is quick, easy, no brainer, no problem. But if you're one of these, you got many distros and you're going back and forth, then you're probably gonna opt for the swap partition.
Right. So I could see where it could be a lot easier to do an install when you don't have to worry about yet one more thing and create another partition
Right,
for something.
right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And as
And-
far as speed of performance, any thoughts on the performance with the partition versus the swap file on the same drive? Or I assume it would be much more effective if you could have a solid state drive as a standalone swap file system, because then you're just using everything on a separate channel internally, and the swap file would be pretty fast. No, any thoughts on that?
No, not really.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, guys.
Okay, Andy, I don't know what a toy box is. I only know what a toy box is for little kids.
If it's an old machine with old hardware, and if it went up in smoke tomorrow, I wouldn't lose a minute's sleep.
Thank you. Rod, you're on.
Thank you. Let me preface my remark with I've done several installation on laptops and wiped out Windows 7, Windows 10, and other Linux distros. And I've always had the option to overwrite the entire hard drive. So now I just helped a friend on an HP tower that had Windows 7 on it. I was only given one option, and that was to install alongside the Windows 7 and to select which one I wanted at boot up. And every time we boot up now, it automatically shows the XFCE desktop as the first option, and then it just boots up and works just fine. I'd really like to wipe out that Windows 7 on that machine. Any suggestions on how I can do that? Because I was given no options at all when I plugged in my exact same USB drive that I use for all the other installations.
The only thing I can think of is that there was something that was put a security lock on the Windows. You could go into using like gparted, and you'd be able to go in and delete the Windows partition and then expand. Might have to then update the grub so that it no longer sees a Windows partition. But
Yeah, I think this is, you know, the legacy boot and the GUID boot and what the Windows had on it before. So like John says, if you have it backed up or you have all the files, you just wipe the whole thing and know what you have. So I'm sure it's some of the legacy stuff from the old Windows when it set up the original partition table.
Well, how would I wipe the whole thing out first and start over?
you would get gparted on your thumb drive, the program called gparted. Old days we put it on a disk, boot to that thumb drive, it brings up a Linux operating system is what it is with gparted. Gparted then will show you the hard drive, just like the the drive manager in Windows. And then you would see all the partitions, and you can one by one delete all the partitions and go back to a clean hard drive, and then add partitions back.
Okay,
Now,
that's
first thing you would do
Oh,
is
yeah.
create a new partition table.
Right.
That would wipe it to 0, and then you add a normally I just add a FAT32 for the whole drive, and then let the Linux installer do its thing.
Yeah, I keep forgetting about that first step. I did the old way with one by one getting rid of the partitions. But yeah, if you go into gparted and go up and choose new partition table, then it takes care of wiping everything out of history. It's still there, but it can be used now.
I'll give that a try. Would you spell that gparted for me, please?
GPARTED. It's
Okay.
GNOME partition tool is what it is.
Okay, thank you very much.
Andy?
Many of the Linux live distributions that you would put on a flash drive contain gparted.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't even have to do a separate install. Whatever you're going to install on that machine, get the live ISO and boot from the live ISO, and you could do all your disk magic in there.
Right.
The tool is generally included on the distribution.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
I love to see you guys participating where you are. You're not in your head, yeah, that's the right answer. You're giving a thumbs up that, yeah, it's the right answer. I think that's way cool, because you're not only getting the answer from one person, you're really getting the answer from a few people. And Richard from Down Under.
Yay, Richard.
Yeah, I suggest to Rod to just replace the disk drive completely with a new cheap SSD.
Yeah.
Just load it up as a Linux machine, and better
That's
performance too.
That's what I've done on a couple of the other machines. It just turns that the person I'm helping right now is very frugal and doesn't want to do that.
Yeah. Wipe it out.
Thanks.
Or maybe Microsoft wants you to keep it as a Windows 7 machine. What can I tell you? Last Wednesday's workshop, we talked about air tags and tiles. And one of the gentlemen said, if you're going to need just a tiny little zip tie, you should go to Walmart in the automotive department. I got mine at Harbor Freight yesterday, and they were $3.99 for a package of a gazillion that I, of course, will never use all of them, but it is fun to not have huge zip ties, but just little ones that you can use to put a tile onto, in my case, my backpack, something like that. Any other questions?
I'm waiting for Mike to come back with his M2 question.
No, I know, because I checked and he's still here.
I did too. We know.
Right there.
Yeah. I'd like to give a big pat on the back to Richard, because not only last week was he with our Windows or our APCUG SIG, which was the middle of the night for him. That night, I got on the Brookdale Computer User Group's Linux group, and he was there with us too. So he had a long day. I hope he took a nap in between.
Andy Kerrigan.
Question for those that are still here. Is anybody using a YouTube program called FreeTube? It's, I don't know if it's open source, it's a freebie. And the reason I ask is I think it's great. I've been using it for a while now, except that it doesn't seem to get all the updates. For example, Judy, you put out the email with the recent YouTubes, a group of 3-4 whatever from recent meetings, and I refreshed it. I started, I stopped it, refreshed, and they don't show up in FreeTube, although they are over on the YouTube site. I'm subscribed to it and whatever. Usually they show up.
It is open source and it's for all 3 operating systems.
Yeah. It's neat.
What's it called again?
FreeTube.
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 You know, my answer to that, Andy, about the videos is that it's just that FreeTube hadn't synced it yet.
That's what I thought, but it's been a couple of days now. Okay. See what happens.
Yeah, because some of the videos, you got to remember, when Judy sends out the videos, they only go to the people who attended workshops. They don't go public on YouTube, maybe for weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the explanation then. Thank you.
Okay, you guys, I am up to 47 responses to the survey. And we had over 80 people here today. And I expect to get at least 80 responses.
I'd like to have a little bit more, because I understand that there are some people that might not have come today.
Yeah, there is, I sent it out. The questionnaire that we sent out a couple of months ago that John heard one response, they were all supposed to go to him. I got 3. One was a litany of Windows questions. I sent those to Bill James to answer. I answered a whole bunch of the Linux questions because I'm always here since the beginning of time. And John answered, and John got an idea for a presentation. That went out to 174 people. We got this many responses. Come on, you guys. So the one today, actually this morning, because I fell asleep last night, that I sent out at 3 o'clock my time in California, went to 168 people.
And there's
so
prizes involved.
By offering an incentive, a typical mom, yes, you do get more money in your allowance if you do XYZ, that people might be more inclined to answer the survey if they get they have the possibility of getting something in return. And I about went blind looking at all of the books on Amazon. And remember, I'm not the Linux user. They just all sounded interesting to me. And so far I have 8 GIMPs, one of the Arduino ones, and the rest are an assortment of all the beginner ones and the beginner command line ones. Come on, you guys.
Good.
Don't you want a book? It will appear in your mailbox, delivered to you directly from Amazon.com. I will have it drop shipped to you, not to me, but to you. Even if Richard in Australia is one of the lucky participants. And I do have to let you know, we have an official prize drawer. Her name is Betty Kennedy. And that is her sole job, other than to support John in life and all that good kind of stuff. She is our official, unbiased person who draws the lucky winners. Stu, you're on from Florida.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine.
Hey, Judy, I wanted to speak to John. When I first started using Linux many moons ago, before we had all these distributions, Enlightenment was the desktop manager we used at that time, way back. And that was back when we were using all kinds of bare bones things. And I haven't kept up with it, but it had a lot of possibilities. But I think most of the distros stopped using it because it had too many possibilities. But
Could be.
but at any rate, Enlightenment's been around for 30 years, you know, and
Yep.
yeah, yep. So I just figured you could put that in your repertoire as you start to speak about this, because it looked, that program, that distro you showed looked very, very interesting. I would just question myself with all those possibilities. Maybe if you got it installed and if you used it carefully, everything would work fine.
Right.
But if you push the wrong button, you could have mincemeat someplace in there, and then you'll have nothing, you know. So I recommend anybody who wants to try it, back up everything and have a backup someplace, because if you need to get back, you can do it.
That was from a been there, done that guy from back in the day.
Yeah.
That's right. And but hey, it was a, you know, you've had very interesting things today, Judy and everyone. That program about accessing your cell phone from the KDE the Connect program, that was very interesting. I got that copied down. But and the live program, they were very good programs they talked about today. Eli.
And they were all planned by Mr. Kennedy and his team. This is my Wednesday off, except for sending everything out and chatting like this. I do Tuesday, I do the 2nd and the 4th Wednesdays. And if any of you guys ever want to give a presentation on VirtualBox or Brave or Opera or something like that, I would be forever in your debt, because I would like to do a series on the different browsers, etc. Richard, you're going to probably walk us off as usual with the
I was just going to suggest perhaps you could repost the survey link into the chat for everyone, for those people that may have lost their original email.
Well,
A light way of saying deleted, huh?
yeah. Oh, hey, I just got one right now.
Judy,
Let's go into my email.
Judy, I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm losing my mind, but I got an email response from you saying thank you for taking the time to complete the survey. And I hate to admit it, but I don't remember completing the survey.
That would have been today, or it would have said you would get a response, because
No,
we
right.
did, she just,
No, I was thinking positively.
Yeah, that's the way it was
okay.
worded.
Thank
Okay.
you for taking the time to complete the
Oh.
survey. That
Okay.
was Judy Talor being positive. I'm not asking you to do it. I'm thanking you in advance. So you have to get my California mentality going here.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
But
for
if-
the
but it-
And when you do get the, when you do answer it and you click on submit, you get one of those pop-ups that says the same thing. Just
Yeah.
like when you register for a workshop.
if Judy, if
Okay.
you want to put it in the chat box, just put that link in for them for.
I'm getting
Good
it
luck.
as we speak.
I'll take this time too to remind everybody that we will not be with you in August. That is a Saturday Safari Day week. So that's my vacation, Dave's vacation, Cal's vacation, Orr's vacation.
I don't get to go on vacation. That's not fair. Oh,
We supposedly go the first Wednesday of every month and the 5th Wednesday
that
of the
is
month.
true. That is true. I do get 4 vacations, 12, 17 vacations a year. And here it goes out to you guys, a link to the survey, and thanking you in advance positively. Instead of asking you to expect it, let's put it this way. I have my mother hat on. I'm expecting you guys to all respond.
Well, we're hoping that the results of the survey will give us a direction in which to go, whether we will continue going, whether we've come to the end of our life cycle. But we need some help and we need some extras. We need some ideas. So hopefully from the survey, our team could get together next month and review and figure out what we're doing.
And please remember, we are warts and all. You do not need to be an expert. If you have given a presentation to your group and you have it already put together, get in touch. We're not asking you to sit down and think, oh, geez, I've got to put a PowerPoint presentation and no. We want you to give us something that you've already worked on and you're familiar with. We're not asking you to do a lot of extra work. We're just asking you to share what you know.
And with others outside of your group, we'd like to know too.
Yeah, so if you're giving it to your group, we're here waiting for you to give us the presentation.